On HQ, Basketball Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo has died from brain cancer. At 7'2", Mutombo was a defensive force in the paint over an 18-year career in the NBA, famous for his memorable finger wag to opponents after a big block, and he had many of them, 3,289 to be exact, which is the second best mark all time. Mutombo was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and went on to become one of a prestigious line of Georgetown centers, along with Patrick Ewing and Alonzo mourning. From the Hoyas, he was then drafted 4th overall by the Nuggets in that 1991 NBA draft. And in the 93-94 season, he was the cornerstone of the famous Nuggets upset of the Sonics in the playoffs. Denver was the first 8 seed to defeat a 1 seed in NBA history. A 4-time Defensive Player of the Year and an 8-time All-Star, Dikembe Mutombo, also known for his gregarious personality and great humanitarian work, was just 58 years old. The league putting out a statement led by Commissioner Adam Silver saying Dikembe Mutombo was simply larger than life. On the court, he was one of the greatest shot blockers and defensive players in the history of the NBA. Off the floor, he poured his heart and soul into helping others, going on to say that there was nobody more qualified than Dikembe to serve as the NBA's first global ambassador, and that the league will truly miss and love him back, Dikembe, for his extraordinary life. Let's now bring in our head coach, Avery Johnson. And Coach, just I want to give you the chance to give your reaction to this news about the death of Mutombo.
Yeah, gone too soon. Dikembe Mutombo was an incredible man. And if you want to start with his work on the basketball court, one of the best defensive players, defensive centers the game has ever seen. 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. This guy was a force inside the paint. I know when I was playing against him, it was a sleepless night the night before the game, because when you went to the basket, you better go in there correct, because he was going to reject your shot, wag that finger, tell you about it during the game, after the game. He was such a delightful man. He was he wasn't a dirty player. He played the game the right way. But in terms of his defense, one of the best defensive centers and defensive players the game has ever seen.
Yeah, that finger wag was something that became larger than life. We've seen it make its way into pop culture, even seen in commercials that Mutombo was a part of up until this day. What was his presence like on the court, knowing you had to go up against him? I know you kind of alluded to it, but just knowing that you've got a stalwart like that at center to protect the rim.
Well, when you go into a game, you got to figure out where's the tough situations on the court. Is it a team's perimeter defense? Is it their post defense? Is their transition offense? But when you go up against Dikembe, you had to plan for him, not just the team, but on how you were going to attack him, because his defense was so highly regarded, and even when he wasn't blocking shots, just changing shots, contesting shots. He was a really good pick and roll defender for his size. But again, you always needed to know where he was on the court. And then off the court, oh my gosh, this guy was a global ambassador, a great humanitarian. He opened up a $29 million hospital back in his country with 300 beds. When you talk about beyond every borders, what he did in terms of growing the game in Africa. You saw the Sudan team, how they improved significantly this year at the Olympics. That's because Dikembe Mutombo, his footprint and his hand were all over that team because of the growth of the game in Africa. He worked with Special Olympics. This guy was just unbelievable in the way he get back to the game and help grow the game globally, but specifically in Africa.
Yeah, I feel like we always saw a smile on his face, and as the game has become more global, it's really nice to know that we just came off of the Olympics where South Sudan had such a good showing, and Mutombo able to witness that and be a part of that. Going back to your playing days, is there ever a time that you can remember maybe trying to think about going into the paint and you see Mutombo there and you rethink things, or a time when he blocked one of your shots that really sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, Oh yeah, he blocked my shot a couple of times. Yeah, I had to start using my floater, throwing it up to the sky. Because if you tried to throw it to the roof or the ceiling of the building, it was going to be a fast break going the other end. But I will say this, one of my funny stories about Dikembe, we used to go on these NBA cruises. And, he really took pride in being a really good ping pong player. So he challenged me to a game of ping pong. And then, he beat me in ping pong. But then he said, hey, I want to play your wife next. He didn't realize that my wife was a better ping pong player than me. And she ended up beating Mutombo in ping pong on this cruise. And she said, not in my house, not in my house. And every time he would see my wife, he would always say, you beat me in ping pong.
That is amazing, and I don't know if we've ever heard that story before, and feel so much better for hearing that, and truly just so much better for knowing Mutombo and all the things that he brought to the game. I think that he certainly will be missed. What will be maybe the lasting memory that you'll have of him?
I think the lasting memory I'll have with Mutombo is when he was overseas and giving back to, Africa, and you would see him, at his hospital with a premature baby in his hands, knowing that that baby would have lost their lives if it wasn't for his hospital and the amount of money that he raised. So his hands were big, not just for blocking shots. His hands were big because he cared so much about humanity and the greater good.
Yeah, just a great person on the court, but maybe even a better person off the court. Dikembe Mutombo certainly gone too soon. Avery Johnson, thank you so much for giving your perspective on how you knew him and went up against him, and not just one way, but multiple ways. It's brain cancer taking Dikembe Mutombo away from us. He was able to die in the presence of his family, but 58 years old, a Hall of Famer, one of the greatest defensive centers we have ever seen, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner, which is tied for the most all time. A lover of his country, of the Republic of Congo, gave so much to the game of basketball. Mutombo, 48 years old.